It is April, which means it is officially NFL Draft month. So I thought on today's show, we'd take a little bit of a break from the usual news and rumors roundup and look at some draft targets for Denver at their biggest positions of need. Now, I'm not doing a mock draft today because let's be honest, if anyone can actually tell you what Denver's going to do 67 picks in, they're somewhat full of shit. So with that being said, let's look at just draft targets at Denver's biggest positions of need. Let's start with the biggest position of need, in my opinion, and that is edge rusher. I think when Denver's on the clock at 67, one of two things will happen. One, they very well move back to get more picks because they only have 5. Or 2, they're going to pick the top edge rusher on the board. Now, when we look at Denver's front 5 real quick, I was just talking to producer Sam about how if this unit actually plays a full season or even like 90% of it, it's a 10th to 15th unit, right? Randy Gregory, if he can play 14 games, Baron Browning, if you can get him close to 17, if Zach Allen has a nice resurgence, or not resurgence, but lives up to his payday, like it's a formidable group. Now, the top 3 pass rushers on this team, outside linebackers that is, Randy Gregory, Baron Browning, and I'm going to toss Nick Bonito in there. When you look at what they did last season, it's not ideal. I mean, they moved on from Von Miller. They moved on from Bradley Chubb. So they don't have a ton of depth at this position. Now, let's look at the top edge rusher targets in this draft. Derick Hall from Auburn, if he's on the board at 67, that'd be a big win for Denver. He's a great prospect. We're going to look at the Notre Dame player in more detail in just a moment, but Zach Harrison, YaYa, and Byron Young, those are some other guys that have been either mocked to Denver or have just been on the Broncos' radar. But I want to zero in on one of these 5 guys in particular, and that is Notre Dame's defensive end, Isaiah Foskey. Now, at the Combine, he measured in at 6'5", 264 pounds. He sacked quarterbacks on 3.9% of pass rush snaps in 2022. That was the highest rate in FBS last season. Now, NFL.com does comparisons for the top prospects, and they gave him Yannick Ngakoue, which Ngakoue the last 4 seasons, 8+ sacks a year. Not too shabby, if you ask me. Now, here's what he did last season for the Irish. 44 tackles, 13.5 of which were for loss, 10.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. Foskey is just a big splash play waiting to happen every time he steps on the field. He just needs some fine-tuning, but the reviews coming out of the Combine and whatnot have been very high-ceiling type of player. He just needs to be coached up a little bit to get the mechanics down at an NFL level, because going up against ACC left tackles is way different than the Chiefs left tackles. So I think he would be a very fun pick. Would he be an immediate contributor in 2023? Probably more so than Nick Bonito, but I do like the pick for Denver if he's on the board. Now, give me your top draft target for Denver in the comments section, right? Try to keep it somewhat in bounds for who will be available at pick 67 when Denver's first on the clock. So give me your number 1 go-to draft target for GM George Paton and head coach Sean Payton. Moving on to our second position of need, I'm going corner. Why? Because George Paton said edge rusher and cornerback are our biggest needs right now. So let's go right to the horse's mouth. Now, here are the top 5 targets for cornerback at pick 67, right? There's a lot of better guys out there that won't be available. Clark Phillips from Utah, Darius Rush and Cam Smith from South Carolina, 2 of the best college cornerback duos last year. Tyrique Stevenson from the U, and then Julius Brents out of Manhattan, Kansas. To zero in on one guy again, let's talk a little bit more about Tyrique Stevenson. So he came in 6 foot, 198 pounds at Indianapolis. He has been mocked to Denver multiple times. Now, I know I started the video off by saying anyone that tells you what they know is going to happen at pick 67 is usually full of it. But I think there is some truth to a lot of people catching wind of Denver going corner early and, well, with one of their first 2 third-round picks going back-to-back. So his NFL comparison was James Bradberry. He's a very physical corner, okay? That's something that jumps out to you immediately when you watch the tape. He might not be the speed demon or top end type of guy, but he's going to make life hell for you the moment that ball is snapped and he's up on you. So his coverage stats from last season: completion percentage, 42.5. That was one of the best in the ACC. Yards-wise, 353. He gave up 3 touchdowns. He had 7 pass breakups and 2 interceptions. Now, I thought this write-up from an anonymous NFC scout on Stevenson was worth sharing. You look at how big he is and think he might be a safety, but he's a press cornerback with the size to push receivers around if his technique is right. So that and Surtain, who's just a perfect cornerback in every single facet, that could be a really fun CB duo right there if Damari Mathis is not the CB2 Denver is looking for. We're going to get to more draft targets in just a quick second, but first, if you're looking for a reason to subscribe, I've got 3 good ones, I think. 1, we are your Broncos draft home. Whether it's mock drafts, draft targets, draft rumors, we keep you in the loop on everything related to the Broncos leading up to the 2023 NFL Draft, including the latest rumors and buzz. Plus, we're pretty close to reaching 14,000 subscribers. Well, it would be a lot closer if those of you watching who have not subscribed went ahead and hit that sub button. So help us reach our next milestone before the NFL Draft kicks off. Hit that sub button today. Moving on to our third position of need for Denver, I'm going to go center. And listen, there's not a ton of center prospects in the field at pick 67. So let's just look at one. And that is Joe Tippmann, center from Wisconsin. 6'6", 313 pounds. Now, I love looking at lineman size because they're all ginormous, and then unfortunately, half of them make us pull our hair out a few years later. But the guy only gave up 1 sack in 625 pass blocking snaps as a starter, a 2-year starter originally from Indiana. I mean, when you look at Big Ten centers, you look at guys who live on the farm and push hay for fun. Tell me that's not Joe Tippmann right there. So when we look at the offensive line depth chart, there was a recent resurgence, a vote of confidence, if you will, in Cushenberry from the front office in Denver. But maybe that could change if a really good center is on the board like Tippmann. And that could be bad news for Lloyd Cushenberry, who last year was one of the worst centers ultimately in football, at least in the eyes of PFF, who ranked him 32nd out of 36. He had an injury pop up midseason, and the coaching staff never activated him off IR after that because they felt there was, 52 better players worthy of a roster spot, or 53. So that could be, spell doom for Cushenberry. We'll have to wait and see. There are 2 big centers in this draft class, John Michael Schmitz and Joe Tippmann. If both those guys are off the board when Denver is on the clock at 67, maybe they feel, you know what, Lloyd Cushenberry is our best option. But if one of those 2 guys is there, that could, make a change of plans for the 2 Paytons. Now, before we get to the rest of our draft picks here, we've got some really awesome Broncos draft hats waiting for you when you use the link chatsports.com/Broncos draft. That link's in the comments and the description of today's show. I'm not a big fan of the flat bill hat, but I like this one. I like the next one. There it is. Thank you, Sam. I don't know. I'm a big fan of the kind of the logo just meshing in, blending in with the team name across the front. So if you agree with me, get the official Broncos 2023 NFL Draft hat using the link at the bottom of the screen. Moving on to the 4th position of need for Denver, I go safety. I don't think it is, but my job is to report to you guys what I'm hearing. And I heard a lot of buzz during free agency that Denver was looking at safeties. So maybe they look at safeties in the draft. And there are 3 guys who could be in contention when Denver's on the clock in round 3. Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M, Ji-Ayir Brown out of Penn State, and Jordan Battle from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. To pick one specifically, I like Antonio Johnson a lot. He's a 6'2", 198-pound corner. I understand that this is draft cliche season, as I like to say, and everyone loves to drool over combine measurements and things like that. But if you want actual one takeaway and not just about quarterback hand size, I think the size of corners is very important because an extra inch, which some say doesn't matter, that's what she said, it might be the difference of getting mossed or getting a pass breakup. And 6'2", that helps out a ton. Now, he led all SEC defensive backs with 3 forced fumbles, and he only played in 9 games, which means he offers a ton of versatility, either working in the slot against receivers or coming into the box and stopping the run and having a nose for the football. 71 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, and like we just said, 3 forced fumbles only in 9 games for the Aggies. Now, where would he fit in? Well, K-Jack is still a free agent right now. There has been some talk of George Paton bringing him back. We'll wait and see if that turns out. If they don't, I like Caden Stearns. I think if you only have 5 picks in this draft, maybe don't use a pick at a spot where you already have a starter in the wings. So I'd be comfortable with giving Caden Stearns a starting role in this team, especially with the way he filled in for Justin Simmons last year. I think he's ready for more action, but he is coming off hip surgery, so we know that can be a long recovery. But predict it for me. Who will be the other starting safety, right? Who will be next to 31? Is it going to be number 30, Caden Stearns? Or is it going to be a rookie, a free agent, Kareem Jackson? Whoever it is, if you're going with door number 2, just type O for other. I hope and think it'll be Caden Stearns, but we will have to wait and see. On to my 5th and final biggest need for Denver. I'm going to go defensive tackle. I kind of wanted to say offensive tackle because you still need a swing tackle, and who knows, maybe you're drafting Garrett Bowles' replacement. But for now, I'm going to go defensive tackle. And there are 5 guys that I think could be in contention at this spot. Mazi Smith out of Michigan. I just saw him go round 1 in a mock draft, so this could be a long fall. He's been a tough nut to crack in terms of where he'll end up. Keanu Benton out of Wisconsin. The guy has been Mr. Popular since the season ended, killing it at the Senior Bowl and at the Combine. Tuli Tuipulotu out of USC. He is a do-it-all athletic freak. And then there's our guy, Adetomiwa, Adebawore, and Siaki Ika. We got some tough names right there. And I picked the toughest one of all for you guys here. Out of Northwestern, originally from the Kansas City area, it is Adetomiwa Adebawore. Okay, write that down so you don't forget. He's 6'2", 282 pounds. His combine athleticism score was a 97. That ranked first amongst all defensive ends. So you don't find athleticism like that usually in round 3 of the NFL draft. The reason why he's not going earlier was he wasn't uber productive at Northwestern, which they did not win a game in the United States last year. So in his defense, he was playing with JV players around him, which doesn't make life easy if the offensive line goes, yep, there's only one player we have to worry about. It's number 99. The rest of them are going to be in the CFL at best. 38 tackles last year for the Wildcats, 9 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. He needs some fine-tuning, right? He needs to learn how to hone his craft in and take his phenomenal raw athleticism and polish it off a little bit. But I got good news. That's what you pay NFL coaches to do. And I like Zach Allen, not love. I like DJ Jones. I'm not so sold on Jonathan Harris being a starting defensive end. Deshaun Williams was not re-signed. Maybe he will be for cheap if they don't find anyone else. But for now, if you want to draft Adebawore from Northwestern, him, Allen, and Jones could be a pretty fun defensive interior unit right there. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not subscribed, you kind of know the YouTube cliche jargon at this point. Hit that sub button, all that good stuff. Basically, if we get more subscribers here at the Broncos Breakdown inside the walls of Chat Sports, we get more studio space. So that's more content for you guys. So a beautiful circle of YouTube life, win-win for everyone.